Hi guys, David O'Sullivan here, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my review of Christopher Nolan's new film, Dunkirk. Now, in case any of you don't know already, Dunkirk tells the story of 400,000 men who, during World War II, in May, I believe, of 1940, were trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, were desperately trying to get back home to England, but they were stuck, they were trapped on this beach, they were surrounded by enemy forces who were closing in every second, and they had nowhere to go. And it basically chronicles the story of the civilians and the people who came out to get them and rescue them. So essentially this film is less of an epic war movie and more of an epic rescue film, if you like, about how all these people came together to try and go out and rescue these guys and bring them home, so we had our boys back home. Going into this film, naturally I was very excited, mainly because it was a Christopher Nolan film. I'll see anything he does. He's my favourite writer-director working today. I think he's absolutely amazing. So naturally, going into this film, I was very excited and very much looking forward to seeing this film. But I also knew what I was in for, because a lot of the reviews and a lot of people that had already seen the movie had let everyone know that this was less of a big, epic, action-packed kind of war movie and more of a survival story, and even Christopher Nolan himself has said so. This is less of a war film and more of a survival story, and so I knew that going in, so I was prepared that this was going to be like a different kind of war movie. And now that I've seen Dunkirk, yeah, I think this was a really great film. I wouldn't say this is Christopher Nolan's best film. I wouldn't say it's the best film of the year. I'm not going to call it a masterpiece or anything like that, but that's not me saying it wasn't a great film, because it was. I just think people are overblowing it a little bit by saying it's like the best film he's ever done. It's an absolute masterpiece, like best film of the year. I do think it's a really great film, and it is really deserving of all the praise and recognition it's getting, but I think people are going a little bit too far with the praise they're giving it. But, you know, I do think this was a really great film, and I did really like it. Now, before I get into specifics of what I actually liked about this film, I first have to address what I mentioned at the beginning, and that this isn't a traditional, conventional war movie. So, in case you don't know already, and in case you haven't seen Dunkirk yet, don't go into this movie expecting a traditional, conventional war movie, because it's not really a war movie at all. I mean, it's a movie set during World War II, but it's not really a war movie. As I said, it's more of a survival story set during World War II about these people that are trapped in this horrific situation. They're defenseless, they're being attacked from all angles, and they're just trying to escape, they're just trying to survive. So it's less of big epic battles and yeah, come on, yeah, woo! It's more just these people are being killed and they're trapped and they're just trying to escape. So it's more of a survival story, more of a story about these people just trying to get out of this horrific situation, desperately just trying to survive, than it is them going into battle and fighting. It's not a film about battles, it's not a film about going to war or anything like that. It is still a war movie, obviously it's set during World War II, but it is more about these people just trying to survive and trying to get out of this situation, and ultimately getting rescued by the people that came to save them. And that's what I really liked about this film, actually, straight off the top here, because a lot of people might overlook that, the fact that it was so different and the fact that it's not a conventional war movie. But when you look at it a lot more closely and really think about it, this was a very different, very unconventional kind of war movie, because in a lot of war movies, most war movies, you get the traditional hero, you get the going into battle, fighting the war, winning the day. This film isn't that at all. It completely subverts what you'd expect from a traditional war movie. Not only is it very unconventional in terms of how it's structured, which I'll get onto in a minute, but it's also very unconventional in terms of you don't get the traditional protagonist hero that you're following throughout the film. I mean, you do get some characters that you follow throughout the course of the story as it unfolds, but you don't get the traditional hero type. You don't get them going into battle, fighting, winning, saving the day. The soldiers in this film are essentially the victims. They're trapped, they're being bombed, they're being attacked, and they're trying to escape. They're just trying to survive. They're not really fighting the enemy, they're just trying to get out of there. They've essentially lost, they've been defeated, but they're trapped now and they can't get home, and they're just desperately trying to escape and desperately trying to cling on and survive. And so the soldiers aren't really the heroes in this movie, they're essentially the victims. And it's kind of very kind of like much of a reversal in that it's the civilians, the innocents, the people back home who are the heroes who come and save the day and save the soldiers. And I really like that, because I was familiar and aware of the story of Dunkirk, but never have I actually seen a modern, a piece of cinema that was all about this event and what actually happened. So it was really cool to see a film and to see Christopher Nolan really delve deep into what actually happened and what actually transpired with this event, and to see that that it was the civilians back home that came and saved these guys and brought them back, I think was really great, and I think that was all done really well. And also, I touched on this a second ago, but I loved how this film was structured. And obviously, with every Nolan film, his movies are often structured in very kind of unique ways, where it's not like a chronological, straightforward, linear narrative. And pretty much all of his films are non-linear in a certain respect, and that's what I love so much about Christopher Nolan's films, because I find, I do like traditional, conventional, chronological narratives, but what I love so much about Christopher Nolan's films is that he always experiments with time, and they're always kind of like non-linear. I love films that play out in a non-linear fashion, where it's not just some straightforward chronological narrative where you can kind of just you can be a bit lazy, you can kind of switch your brain off and you can still follow what's going on. With Christopher Nolan's films, because they often always play out in this non-linear fashion, you've always got to engage your brain and really think about what you're watching, and then something might happen and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, and you've really got to think about what you're seeing and what's actually going on. And the great thing about how Nolan does this is that he doesn't dumb it down for the audience. He just expects the audience to be smart enough to keep up and to follow what's going on. It's what I loved about Memento and Inception, obviously, and all of his other films, is that he doesn't dumb it down for the audience. Even when he does a big blockbuster like Inception or like Dunkirk, if you call it a blockbuster, which it kind of is, he doesn't dumb it down for the audience. He expects the audience to be able to be smart enough to follow what's going on, and I absolutely love that. And with this film, it's essentially told in 3 different parts: as land, sea and air, which I really like. I wasn't sure about how this film was going to play out going in, but I loved how they kind of cut back and forth between kind of the soldiers on the ground on the beaches, they had the sailors out at sea coming to rescue the soldiers, and then they had the kind of the pilots in the air with the Spitfires. And I loved how they cut back and forth between that. And what makes this film non-linear is, of course, they all play out in different time frames. We're seeing this event play out from 3 different perspectives. We've got the soldiers on the ground that plays out over the course of a week, I believe. We've got the sailors coming to rescue the soldiers that plays out over a day. And then we've got Tom Hardy, the pilots up there in the Spitfires that plays out over an hour. And it's so fantastically well done that at first I didn't even realise what he was doing, and then over the course of the film I gradually picked up on it. There's a moment in the film where you see a character who's in one portion of the film reappear in another time frame, and you're like, oh, I get what he's doing now, because I was like, hang on a minute, it's going back and forth between day and night, and they're in the same place, aren't they? And that's when I realised, oh, we're seeing this play out over the course of 3 different time frames. Some people are saying, was that really necessary? Did it really need to be in those 3 different time frames, from those 3 different perspectives? Did it really add anything to the film? But I think it did. Not only was it set in these 3 different areas of land, sea and air, we got to see the event transpire from 3 different points of view, from the soldiers on the ground, the pilots in the air and the sailors on the sea. And it was so seamlessly done. Like I said, I didn't realise at first that it was playing out across 3 different time frames, a week, a day and an hour. It was so seamlessly, woven together. It just works so well, and how they all overlapped as well. There's certain moments throughout the film where the land and the sea, or the sea and the air, for example, may kind of overlap briefly, and I think it was all done really well. And I think it did add to the film, that it made it feel even more kind of disorientating in a way. It kept us in there, kept us in this event. We didn't really know what was going on. It was all happening all at the same time, but we got to see it from all these different perspectives, and I really loved how Nolan did that. And talking about perspective, I absolutely loved how this film really immersed us into this situation, really made it feel like we were there, in terms of we see it from the point of view of these characters. And to address the elephant in the room, a big complaint that a lot of people are having with this movie is that we can't really get engaged and invested with the characters. We don't really know much about them. We don't really know where they've been or what they've done. But I would argue we don't really need to know any of that. That's completely unnecessary. That's not even relevant to the story they're telling. This film is about the event of Dunkirk. And what Nolan was trying to do, which I think he absolutely nailed, was to immerse us into that environment and make it feel like we were there. And I think he absolutely knocked it out of the park in that respect. And I would argue that we could get engaged and invested with the characters. Yes, we don't really know a whole lot about them. There's not a lot of lengthy dialogue scenes. We don't really know much about these individual characters in terms of where they've been or what they've done. But I don't think we needed to. I mean, in order to care about these guys and be rooting for them and to really connect with what they're going through, I don't think we really need to know anything about them. You only need to be a human and have a heart and a soul in order to care about these people that are in this horrific situation, that are being attacked and being killed, and they're desperately trying to escape, they're desperately trying to survive. Anyone can relate to that as long as you're a human and you've got a heart. You don't really need to know about what they've done or, who these people are or what their likes or interests are or hear them talking to each other. We don't really need to have that in order to care about them and be invested and to actually kind of really be on the edge of your seat and feel like you're there with them. And that's what, for me, this film nailed, is that it was a very experiential war film. A lot of war movies, you're sitting back and you're watching a character in a war and you're watching their story play out. This film was very different in that you're not watching a war film, you're in the war, you're there side by side with them, you're one of the characters alongside these people in this situation. It was so much more intense and suspenseful because it felt like we were there. It didn't feel like when I was watching this film in the cinema, it didn't feel like I was sitting there watching a film on a screen. It felt like I was in that event. It felt like I was there with these guys, and it was so much more intense and so much more suspenseful because of that. I really don't feel like we needed to know much about who these people are, because in a war, characters aren't just sitting around having lengthy conversations. They're being attacked, they're being killed, they're trying to escape, they're trying to just desperately survive. They haven't got time to just sit around and talking. And for me, the kind of one lengthy dialogue scene where they are sitting around talking was kind of probably like the worst aspect of the film. I think the dialogue was a little clunky at times. That's not a major issue because, like I said, the dialogue was like the least significant part of the film. For the most part, this film is almost like a silent film, and that it's just about the visuals, and it's a great example, I think, this film of visual storytelling. It's like we don't really need a whole lot of dialogue, and that's the great thing about cinema. It's a visual medium, and Nolan just really shows us with this film. It's like you don't need lengthy dialogue scenes. We don't really need to know loads about these characters. We don't need loads of exposition. We just need to see these characters in this horrific situation and feel like we're there in this environment and in this horrific event with them. We're going to care and feel invested and be able to connect with them because of that, because we are human beings and because we can relate to how horrific that must feel, and we just want to get out of there too. And I think Nolan absolutely smashed it in that sense. So I really don't understand people that are like, oh, I didn't learn a lot about the characters, I didn't really know what they were doing or what they like, so I couldn't really care. Like, what? And also quickly, I think Hans Zimmer's score was absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of his best scores. I loved how he blended diegetic and non-diegetic sound. At times you didn't really know whether it was actually the sound in the world of the film or it was the music. At times they often blended together, and I think it made it even more of an atmospheric, immersive experience with how that music really added to the film. It made it feel like we were there. At times we weren't sure whether it was the music we were hearing or whether it was the sound of the actual planes or the boats. It was all mixed and blended together so extremely effectively that it honestly felt like we were there, and we could hear these planes and we could hear the sound of everything around us, and how that was all mixed together with like the ticking of the clock and with the intense, suspenseful, on the edge of your seat music. How it was all blended together. I think it was a really absolutely fantastic score. Quite different but extremely effective and worked really well. And of course I've got to talk about the visuals and the practical effects that are employed here. And it's another thing I love about Nolan's films. Even when he does big blockbusters, there's always a massive emphasis on practical effects, like we saw in the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception for example, and here as well. We're watching this epic war movie unfold in terms of these big kind of bombs being dropped and things exploding, but it's so much more riveting and so much more powerful and impactful to watch, because you can tell like 99% of the things we're watching on screen are actually happening, and it's so much more authentic because we believe these things are actually happening and we're seeing these things actually go down, because we can tell that that's real, that's not CGI. We're not watching loads of green screen CGI explosions. This looks real because it is real, and it's so much more riveting and so much more impactful as us as a viewer to watch this to go down, because we can tell that's actually real, that's actually happening. We don't for one second think, we're watching a made up dramatized reconstruction of past events here. No, it feels like we're actually in this real event experiencing it unfold, and the practical effects really added a whole lot to that. And of course the film is absolutely stunning from a cinematography standpoint, as all Nolan films are. It's just absolutely breathtaking from a visual perspective. And lastly, I have to touch on the emotional undercurrent that played throughout this film. I really wasn't expecting this film to be as emotional as it was, and particularly during the kind of the beginning of the film, there's some things that happen early on, just small character moments really, and just looks that characters give, and just small actions and movements that really actually hit me, and I was like almost in tears, and I really wasn't expecting that. And obviously we get the big emotional finale at the end, but just some small character moments throughout the film really hit me, just like Kenneth Branagh just looking out to see, just very small character moments actually really hit me and really got to me. And I think that was what was so great about this film, is that a lot of people complain about Nolan's films is that they're not very emotional, but for me this film was both very impactful and powerful and very impressive from a technical standpoint, but also very emotional as well, and it really hit me and had a really big impact on me in that respect as well, similar to Interstellar in a way actually. So overall, I've got to wrap this up now because I'm just going on and on, but as you can tell, I absolutely love Dunkirk. I don't know if this is Christopher Nolan's best film. I absolutely love Inception. I think that will always be my favourite, but I think this was a phenomenal film. Extremely well executed, very effective, very powerful, had a really big impact on me. I loved how it played out and how Christopher Nolan told this film from a very different perspective and a very different point of view. It made us feel like we were in that situation, in this environment, with these guys, experiencing it, watching it unfold around us. I think it was very effective, very powerful, very immersive. Phenomenal film. I think he did a fantastic job. So overall, I'm going to give Dunkirk, as you'd expect, 5 stars. And there we go, that wraps up my review of Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you want to see more, be sure to click subscribe to see more. If you missed my last film review, be sure to go ahead and click over here to watch my last film review, or perhaps down here to catch up on another one of my recent videos. But with that being said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.